this. Look how fantastical this is. Hi, you guys. Rachel here, the Modern Shaman. Thanks for joining me for this week's YouTube question of the week. Happy Halloween. I have to say, you can't tell? I am all dressed up. My family still fully does all the Halloween traditions. We all dress up as a family, and this is my fancy little cosmic mama. I've got moons and stars. I've got a cake. This one's awesome. I still get into it. It's so fun. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and I love the energy of All Saints Day, this All Souls energy, and the Hallows Eve that it brings, and has this kind of continuum of spiritual energy, and just reminding us of the afterlife, the ever-present life, and a sense of connectedness to other realms. So I think that's beautiful. I don't like all the dark stuff, but I like all the connection to the metaphysical realms that comes up during this time. So I wanted to announce something before I get into the question this week, and that is that I am having a special winter solstice event at my house, and you guys are invited if you want to come in for that event. Anyone can register. It's $33, which is kind of a donation, but basically because I'm going to have food, so it kind of helps to contribute to the cost of the food and the teas. And that evening, we're going to have here, like I said, at my house. If you register, I'll send you the address, and it will be a wonderful time of kind of a round table discussion from light workers, from fellow metaphysicians, and those that are just into what we're into, where we just have seasonal food in alignment with kind of the circadian rhythms of winter, and teas that are also in alignment with the energy of winter, and kind of bringing that in through our body. Then I'm going to do a saging and a drumming circle outside in the courtyard, and kind of clearing and cleaning us. And then we are going to do a gong sound bath in the pool. So elevating kind of that energy of water under the stars at night with the gong sound bath. Sounds just amazing. I'm actually genuinely excited to participate. So if you're interested, I would love for you guys to join us. It's the first time I've had an event that I've hosted since COVID, I think. After that, I kind of just went quiet with a lot of stuff that I was initiating in person. So welcome back. And I would love to connect with you guys physically. If you would love to join us, let me know. That's December 21st, so winter solstice here in the evening at 6 o'clock. Okay, here's the question this week. This one actually came in, and I kept it for today because it's kind of Halloweenish, you know, this question. So this person wrote in and said, "Hi Rachel, thanks so much for your videos. I was wondering if you could do one on the craziest or scariest paranormal stories and experiences you've ever had. I'm sure in your line of work, you've seen some crazy things. Would love to hear the stories. Haha." So this is a storytelling one. It's kind of like the spooky stories or paranormal stories. And honestly, I don't usually do this kind of thing because I don't like the sensationalism around my area of work, right? Of like the black crow on someone's shoulder and the little mystical magic ball. I don't like all of that sensationalism because I feel like it takes away from the truth and the authenticity of what I do. I say that literally with a headband of a moon and stars. The irony. Oh, the irony. But I will answer your question. Today's the day that you get some spooky stories or crazy stories. Because yes, in this line of work, this comes up. But let me say this before I get into the storytelling of some things that have happened that have been kind of crazy. I will tell you that most of the entities and energies that utilize the energy of fear feed off of you feeling the fear that they're trying to induce in you. So I have found in my experience, even as a child, when I would notice spirits and things like this trying to elicit fear, that the quickest and easiest way to deflate that or keep it off of you and keep yourself pure of that, is to go with the opposite energy, which is joy and mirth and lightness. So things that are funny and joyful and happy, essentially the air energy, and bringing that into your experience in response to these energies. So I'll tell you the stories, but I don't want you to feel fear from my stories, okay? You have to promise me that. So I'm going to tell them with a little bit of joy because I don't want them to elicit fear. I think my first crazy paranormal experience that I can share was when I was a missionary. Many of you know this, but when I was 21, right out of college, I became an inner city missionary in inner city East Oakland, California. And I lived in Oakland, and I lived in a duplex there, and there were, I think, 6 or 7 of us that lived in that duplex, and essentially just tried to be in the proximity of people that needed the energy of love in whatever way, shape, or form that took. And there was one night in particular that was my first experience really with possessive demons. I don't know that I had ever had such a psychic attack ever in my life. And what happened was we stayed in a duplex, and our room for the girls that were missionaries was butted up against the other side of the duplex. So it was a shared wall, and those walls were like paper thin. And on the other side of the wall was a woman and her daughter. And I won't give any names, but anyways, her daughter was in your young 20s and was going through it. And she was trying to take her life one evening. And she decided to shut herself into her bathroom and lock the door so her mother couldn't stop her. Well, that bathroom door and that bathroom wall shared our wall in our bedroom. And my bunk bed was right up against that shared wall. So I slept right up against that wall. So the energy coming in from that evening was just sheer like terror and panic and trauma from the other side, where she was going through so much inner turmoil and I believe was being attacked by psychic entities. And her mother was trying to keep her from taking her life. And it was just a lot of shouting, just hours and hours of this. And through us trying to help her, and then basically the mother like shutting us out, we were there. Eventually, the police came, they broke the door open, they got the daughter, they took her to the hospital, and her life was saved. But when I went to sleep that night, I slept against that wall, and I finally just fell asleep due to sheer exhaustion. I was so mentally, physically drained. I was just arduously praying and putting hands on that and just sending all the energy I could. And I was just completely drained of all of my energy trying to uplift this other person. I mean, it was exhausting. And so that evening, I just fell asleep from sheer exhaustion of everything. And this second after I fell asleep, one of the entities that I believe was getting and was attacking the daughter jumped onto me. And I just remember that the most dominant part of that experience was the weight of that entity. It was so physically heavy. It felt like this force. It was this massive force, just this huge force. You know, it was over my whole face, my head, and my chest, and my stomach. Just this huge force. It didn't have a face or a body, but it was just like this energy of darkness. And it was like this, like as if something was like crushing me. It felt like a boulder of fear and panic. It was like this, like a like a fearful, dark, heavy, smelly. It smelled bad too. I think my clairsentient. Anyways, and it was just pressing on me. And I remember thinking in that moment, even though I knew I was asleep, it was kind of in that in-between state because I hadn't fully fallen asleep, but my body was so exhausted I wasn't fighting against, I wasn't pushing against. So it just attacked and pressed on me and was trying to kind of in that parasitic way get another thing to feed off of. And so I couldn't breathe, I couldn't talk, I couldn't say help to my roommates who were just right there in the room, but I couldn't even open my eyes. I felt like there was something there, pressing, keeping me. And I remember thinking, if I can just say the name of Jesus, or if I can just say, get off of me, like if I could just say something, then they would go. And I knew this in my consciousness and in my spirit, but that force was trying to keep me from talking psychically in my head, through my clairaudience, and through my actual voice. So there was something like holding and strangling this sense of keeping me from doing this. And so I just started whispering in my clairaudient voice. So it wasn't my words, but I just in my head, because even my head was like suffocating. When a psychic attack is there, it like presses against even your extrasensory perception. So it was the same. It was like all I could see was blackness. There was nothing there but just like a heavy black force. And I just started whispering in my head. It was like I was trying to push it out, when you're almost like siphoning the tiny bit of air to come out to say those words. And I just kept saying the name of Jesus, and I kept saying, get back, get off. So Jesus, and then get off. And as I said that, and I said it, I don't know, for like maybe 20, 30 minutes. It was a long time of just repeating that phrase. And I noticed the longer I said it, the more I could say it. So it started lessening and dissipating the energy. And I just kind of pushed with my psychic force more and more and more into those words until eventually it left. Interesting thing though, it tripped all of the electrical signals in that house. We had an alarm system in that house, and the alarm started going off. And then the fuses were out. So none of our electrical outlets would work. It was such a powerful force. And when it left, it tripped all of that stuff because it left my body, and then the alarm started going off. And we got up, but we couldn't turn on any of the lights because the electrical had kind of burst out. That was a crazy experience in my 20s with that kind of force. And then my go-to that morning was, I knew just intuitively I had to clean myself. So I took a shower. I literally took a washcloth. I remember doing this. And I wiped down the mattress of my bed. It was like I was putting holy water. I took the sheets off and I wiped underneath that. Like I felt like it was dirty. And I had this intuitive awareness of like, I would need to purify this space. And then I hung the washcloths like on the little rings that we used to climb up to the top bunk, because I had a lower bunk. And that was a wild experience. That was one of them. Maybe I have time for one more. There's been many. I would say probably the other thing that was the most fear-inducing, or trying to get me to feel the energy of fear, was interactions. And I've had maybe 3 of these where a possessive entity, that's a dark entity or a demon, is attached to someone, and when I'm clearing them, the demon starts to speak through that person's voice. That's a trippy moment. I mean, there's no way around that. Particularly, there were 3 times when these were women that had this experience, and the demonic voice was masculine. So it was really strange. And poltergeist, those ones where you're like, oh man, that was heavy and nasty and just dark, and I gotta really sage and clear this place and freaking clean it out. Sage and clear myself afterwards. But there was one particular experience in general where a woman had been through an ayahuasca retreat, but the shaman that was in charge of that really didn't have control over the psychic space, hadn't cleaned it and kept that space holy and sacred. And so a lot of those people that were in that state of mind were not having a positive experience. Instead, they were like open, and a lot of negative spirits just jumped on them because it was kind of like a feeding frenzy of the energies that were on people in the group that had not been cleansed and cleared before going into that sacred space. So I will say it's important, if you were doing something like that, that you make sure that you have an experienced shaman that knows how to create a sacred space that holds an element of protection around that sacred circle. Anyhow, one of them, she was laying down. She came to me for help afterwards because she felt suicidal. She felt these voices were not her own. And she lay down on the couch, and I started drumming and setting the intention to clear and get that entity out of her. And like I said, I've had this happen multiple times, but this one was shocking because she was such a peaceful, calming, feminine voice. And when I started clearing it, she started getting this gurgling coming out of her throat, and it was like a lump that literally you could see move from underneath the skin, like right up into the throat. And it was like this little boil almost thing underneath the skin of the throat. And then when it started talking from that boil. It started kind of coughing first, and then it started talking. It was like a deep masculine voice, and she was fully like eyes closed in the trance, like out of it. And I just kept pulling that voice out, pulling that energy out until we could clear her fully. But that was a crazy one. And those voices tend to say, you can't get me out. They try to elicit fear. They try to say things and speak and take a voice and take a presence that is fear inducing, because if they can get you to feel fear, they can feed off of you and feed off of that fear. So the strongest way, like I said earlier, to combat that is with a sense of peace and love and joy and the opposite energy in you. Then they can't feed off of that and they leave. So the clearing was successful. But anyways, those are crazy. I don't really enjoy those just because there's a sense of having to like deeply clean and clear yourself. I'm sure there are many practitioners out there that is what they have as their level of expertise, and they focus on it. But I want to say that those of you guys listening, to encourage you to embody this energy of purity and truth, light, joy, make fun of things like this. Like, oh my goodness, I remember when I was younger and I had a friend who had a birthday around Halloween, and she would always have the same party where we would go on this hayride to this really fancy, elaborate haunted house with all these rooms, and the floors and the ceilings moved in, and it just went on and on for rooms. And I hated that party because I don't like scary things. I don't watch horror movies. I don't enjoy feeling fear. So I didn't like it. But I learned as a young child that these are people just trying to elicit fear. So if I, on the opposite side, say, oh, your costume is crazy. Oh, that looks amazing. Oh, you're so funny. Or, oh my gosh, you're not going to scare me. Or, oh, I would sing songs. I would be playful. This energy naturally kind of pushed them away from me and made them go to the kids that were screaming in fear, that they felt like they were getting the response they wanted. This is the same for non-physical entities. So do not live or embody that fear. Instead, work hard, if you know that this is an area of concern for you, to feel the energy of sovereignty, of joy, of happiness, of mirth, of just like fun and playfulness, okay, in this. And if you are ever in a space of healing, like the ayahuasca retreat that I gave that example of before, make sure that you have a sacred space that is sanctified, that is separate, and that someone can hold those psychic boundaries as you are experiencing that time. I hope that this video is a blessing to you guys. Happy Halloween. I'll be back next week with another video. Bye.